Okay, well, I'm gonna try and do my best, I suppose, to show you how to, I guess, do some things or effects. So, to start a new canvas or to start a new image at all, you can go to File and then New, and you can choose the width and height, and usually you can ask me if you need to know like what the height and width needs to be, or resolution, or even any of these things. But I usually have it already set to this, so if you really want, you can just copy these settings that you already see here. But yeah, now, so one of the first things I'm going to do is try and replicate like the Hook, Gang God, Dragon Ball Z font. So yeah, obviously that font requires you to know how to use gradients, and basically what I'll be using is the eyedrop tool or eyedropper tool to get the colors. Now, the first things to do is like to actually type it in. I already have it set to the font, and I've kind of had it set to that for a while. You can have it as any color, honestly, it really doesn't matter. Usually I just have it as white so that nothing messes up. But we make it slightly larger, and one of the first things I'll do is put a stroke on it, because that's actually what Dragon Ball font has a really large dark stroke. And yeah, now probably the first course of action is to get the colors. I already have it typed in. The top color is this, and then the bottom color is this. So usually what you'll do, right, is you'll go to blending options, you'll click gradient overlay, and I kind of already have it set as this. Basically you'll pick one of these, and usually this will have the color, right? But then you have to click this, and then you have to double click this square over here so you can pick the color. Now you have to type it in because you probably won't be able to indicate it that well which color it is. So it's 167 131 0 167 131, and it's already 0 over there. So obviously it's not too much like the Dragon Ball font yet, because there's too much of this going on. So what you have to do is you have to push this so you can make it so it's more prevalent, right? This is more prevalent than the other. And basically you just have it like that. Now you can switch this up a little bit, the scale. I think this is good. So basically what I just did, now it looks literally like the Dragon Ball font. That's pretty much what I did, and that's more or less how it worked. It doesn't really take too much, although I had to do the other text, and I had to do the other one with this color, and actually I had to render out this Dragon Ball so I could put it here, because that's what the original Hook image has. But one of these texts didn't take me too long. I don't know how long I've been recording. 3 minutes, 4 minutes, not that long. Something that did take me long, and I'll show you. Don't mind the anime girls you will likely see. Is this image. I made this image for Cassandra. She is in Hook's chat, she streams, and this is her offline banner. Basically, a technique I used in this is this thing called overlaying. Now, let me go make a new canvas so I can show you these things. The size of this image is 1920 by 1080, and let me take this image over here and put it back to normal. Let me move it around. Let me put it back to normal because it's a certain it has a certain thing to it. take these two images, move it over here. Okay. So basically, normally you won't have any effect because this thing is normal. So let me just put these two normal wall. Once you put an overlay, and once you make it overlay, it will basically do this effect. And if you overlay over all these things, it will do a specific effect towards the image. So now it looks a bit different than what it originally did. There's a lot of steps for me to make it look like well, this, because there's a lot of other things. There's color corrections, there's like different backgrounds kind of going into it. Like there's these two backgrounds as well, actually. Let me take these two, oops, and make it below these. Basically just those two things, because you can have this effect. That's how I put the effect there for this, because there's another thing, actually it's right here. And that's basically how I completed the effect. More or less that's how the process went. I used this layer and this layer to put it over each other. I had to manually create this one, unfortunately, so I can't like really show you, or in a way like you would basically understand, because it does. This one takes a long time, and I don't want to take too much time. So basically, one of the most basic things is like overlaying an image over each other. You can honestly do that, I mean, here too, technically, even though it would look hella weird. You would make this overlay, looks hella weird, but you see the image over it now, because it's basically slightly more transparent, but not completely. But yeah. Another thing I will show you is how I render out difficult images to render out. This one might take a while, and I'm just going to take some sort of random image here. I don't know which one. I have a lot of like images, some NSFW I guess. So here, let me just make it an easier. So basically, the entire point of using this thing called the pen tool is basically you're drawing around the image, right? So what I'll be doing is doing a lot of stuff like this, and how you basically do that, I'll show you. It's not what I meant to do. You'll have a starting point. Doesn't really matter where usually, it just kind of matters what you do. Is you'll start here and then you'll make another point here. Now obviously this doesn't actually cover this, so what you'll do is you take the middle point, you click on it, and it'll create these two things. And basically you'll click or hold control, right? You'll be holding it now, and you'll still hold it, and you'll be moving this thing around. And basically you'll try and make it more like that. And this process might take me a bit, so bear with me. But this is how I make renders of images that you can't just magic wand away. But you just do this a lot. Basically try and get the image, or try and get most of the image. Well, you're basically like drawing around the image with a pen tool. And I'm not using a tablet, or I'm not using any like sort of specified tool. I'm just using a mouse. It's just a mouse. So I'm just going to be drawing around this. Sometimes you can move this around with the arrow keys as well. But what I'm doing every other thing is, since I have to move around the middle image, I'll show you right now. For example, I do this, and then I hold the middle. Now I have to return back to the last point that I made, which is this one. So I'll click this so it doesn't mess up, because sometimes if you do that it'll mess up, or some things will get messed up. So let me just extend this with arrow keys. Oops. Now this is like a pretty long process. That's why it's kind of annoying to do renders of images sometimes. Like, you guys will send me really large pictures of people and I have to render it out, which I don't mind because I can do them just fine because I'm used to doing this. But basically I'm just showing you this is what I have to do every time I actually see an image so I can like render it out correctly. Now you go here, since you're finally at the bottom. You're not exactly done yet when you get here. This is probably like the longest thing to do when creating like an emote usually, because let me just show you what I've had to render out before. I've had to render out literally Goku Black and his like large sword and whatever. So that was probably like the longest one to render out for Hook, or one of the longer ones to do for him. But yeah. Let's see. And then do that. Sometimes if there's gaps and stuff, you kind of have to go through there as well, so that it looks clean enough. And here. Oops. This is like pretty long and tedious, and if you really wanted, you could like skip to the part, I guess, where I finish it. But I'm almost done, and there's an example or something I'll show you afterwards, because there's another thing with this, or another catch to it. So basically you've gone back to the original point, and basically what you do is right click, create vector mask, and bam, now the image has a transparent background in most places. There are still other things, like these two gaps right here, this, or not that, these things right over here, these two things. So basically they're not transparent, more or less. And what you may want to do is you'll have to do it again, but it'll kind of do it for you if you do it. So you go here, and there, and bam, it does it for you. Now you'll start over again, or not again, but yeah, if you just make the selection, it basically takes it out for you already, because you already did the vector mask, and you get the same idea. You would do the same in this part of it, or this whole part of it. But basically that's how I do renders for certain images, and the reason why I do this is because it's the most accurate way usually, and it's pretty much like the only other way other than using an eraser or whatever. Like for example, let me delete the vector mask, or never mind, disable vector mask. Like basically doing this, I know maybe some people do this, I'm not sure if you did with that image, like you're trying to erase it and stuff. It's not really practical, especially because you can try and do it, but it's not really gonna work usually, because because then you'll end up doing this sometimes, and you'll accidentally do that, and you have to Control Z. But basically, that's how I render things. So, yeah. I think that should be the video. So, yeah.